Good morning, boys and girls, and all of our beloved library friends.
Thank you for tuning in and watching our live stream today. We are so happy you could join us for this special, surprising story time.
Did you say special?
I did.
Did you say surprising?
I did.
Oh, there's a surprise?
There's a surprise.
What's a surprise?
Do you have any guesses?
Oh.
Yes.
I know. Is it a puppy?
Not today.
Oh, but I love puppies.
Me too.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
It's a tractor. Yes.
Not today, but hopefully soon.
We're going to do air fried cooking at the library. Yes.
Maybe, but not today. I have a different surprise for you today.
Oh, well, what is it?
It is
Yeah?
a puppet show.
A puppet show?
A puppet show!
I love puppets. Don't you too?
Wonderful. Should we sing our beginning song before we go to our puppet show?
Yes.
Okay, get your hands ready. We're going to sing The More We Get Together. The more we get together, the more we get together, the happier we'll be. 'Cause your friends are my friends and my friends are your friends. The more we get together, the happier we'll be. The more we read together, the more we read together, the happier we'll be. 'Cause your books are my books and my books are your books. The more we read together, the happier we'll be.
Very good, boys and girls.
Very good. Now, by the powers of library science,
Puppet show.
did you know that once very long ago, cats and mice were not enemies as they are today? No, indeed. As a matter of fact, many cats and mice were very good friends. This is the story of one cat and one mouse who were not only good friends, they were the very best friends. They played together, they worked together, they even ate together. That's right. Every week they would put their money together and go to the cheese shop and buy a large cheese. Then they would eat that cheese a little bit at a time so it would last all week long. On the last day of the week, the cat would always say, "Friend Mouse, why don't you take the last bite of cheese, for you are much smaller than I?" And then the mouse would always say,
No, friend cat. You should have the last bite because you are much bigger than I.
They would go on and on until finally they would end up sharing even the last little crumb of cheese. The cat and the mouse went along like this for quite some time. Then one day, the cat happened to be strolling by the cheese shop just as the keeper put a fine large cheese in the window. The cat said to himself, "You know, I do believe that this is the finest cheese I have ever seen." The cat stood outside the shop and sniffed the air and mumbled to himself again, "You know, I do believe that this is also the finest cheese I have ever smelt." When the cat finally went on his way, he soon found that all he could think about was that cheese. He thought about it all that night and all the next day. He thought about that cheese all week long. At the end of the week, the cat and the mouse put their money together as usual and went to the cheese shop just as they had always done. But this time, when the cat handed the money to the shopkeeper, he said, "I would like to buy the cheese in the window." When the mouse heard this, he gave the cat a little tap, tap, tap and said,
Friend cat, don't you mean we would like to buy the cheese in the window?
The cat looked down at the mouse and said, "Oh yes, I forgot. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper had gotten the cheese from the window and was wrapping it with clean white paper and tying it up with red string. Now, the cheese was quite heavy, so the cat and mouse only took turns carrying the cheese. Because the mouse was so small, he could only carry the cheese a short way before growing tired, but all the while he would sing this little song.
Our cheese, oh what a beautiful cheese.
When it was the cat's turn to carry the cheese, he too would sing the little song. Our cheese, oh what a beautiful cheese. This went on for an hour or so. First the mouse carrying the cheese and singing the little song, then the cat carrying the cheese and singing the little song. After a while, when the cat was carrying the cheese once more, he began to sing a new song. My cheese, oh what a beautiful cheese. Now when the mouse heard this, he gave the cat another little tap, tap, tap and said,
Friend cat, don't you mean our cheese?
The cat answered, Oh yes, I forgot, and began once again singing the mouse's song. However, in a little while, the cat began singing his own song again. My cheese, oh what a beautiful cheese. Soon, every time the cat carried the cheese, he would forget and start singing the wrong song, and the mouse would have to remind him with a little tap, tap, tap. By this time, it was starting to get late. You see, the cheese was so heavy, the cat and the mouse began walking more and more slowly. After a while, the cat said, You know, I don't think we're going to make it home with this cheese unless we stop and take a rest. The mouse answered,
Well, friend cat, if you think we should stop and take a rest, then I think so too.
They sat down at the base of a tall tree with the cheese resting on the ground between them. The cat closed his eyes, and then the mouse closed his eyes. The cat opened his eyes, and then the mouse opened his eyes. You know, said the cat, I'm afraid to go to sleep with this cheese lying on the ground here. Some wild animal might come along and gobble it up while we are sleeping. The mouse answered,
You are so clever, friend cat. But what shall we do with the cheese?
The cat looked up into the top of the tree and thought for a moment. You know, he said, if one of us could take the cheese to the top of this tree and leave it there, I think it would be very safe indeed. The mouse looked up into the top of the tree and also thought for a moment.
Friend cat, I think that's a wonderful idea, but I could never climb so high. You will have to carry the cheese up the tree.
The cat very happily picked up the cheese, holding the string between his teeth, and began to climb up the trunk of the tree. The little mouse watched his friend climbing the tree with the heavy cheese and called out to him,
Keep going! You can make it, friend cat!
Finally, when the cat had made it to the highest branch of the tree and had settled the cheese down beside him, he called down to the mouse, You know, I do believe there's a wind up here. I'm afraid we cannot leave the cheese here alone, as it might fall out of the tree. The mouse looked up the tree and back down to the ground, and then back up the tree.
Well, friend cat, do you think you would mind very much taking your nap up there beside the cheese? You could keep it from falling.
The cat smiled back down at the mouse and answered, Well, I think you are just the most clever mouse I have ever met. That is just what I shall do. The cat settled himself down with the cheese between his paws and began to sing the mouse's song. Our cheese, oh what a beautiful cheese. Meanwhile, The mouse gathered himself up a small pile of leaves and snuggled down under them. He closed his eyes and fell asleep listening to the cat singing the song. No sooner than the mouse was asleep, however, than the cat began to sing the wrong song. He sang it over and over and over. My cheese, oh what a beautiful cheese. All the while he was sniffing that cheese through the paper. He took great, huge breaths of air and sniffed and sniffed and sniffed, and that cheese smelled so good. In a little while he said to himself, "You know, I think I could smell this cheese a lot better if I took this wrapping off of it, and a few little sniffs wouldn't hurt anything, now would it?" So that is just what he did. He untied that red string and ripped off that paper and threw it to the ground. He began to sniff that cheese again. He sniffed and he sniffed and he sniffed, and that cheese smelled so sweet. In a little while he said to himself, "You know, I do believe I have sniffed every bit of the smell off of this cheese." Then he said, "You know, I don't think it would hurt anything if I were to lick this cheese a few times just to get a little taste of it." And without waiting for even a moment, he began to lick the cheese. He licked that cheese on the top and on the sides. Then he rolled it over and licked the bottom of the cheese. That cheese tasted so delicious, he licked and he licked and he licked. After a little while, he said to himself, "You know, I do believe I have licked every bit of flavor off of this cheese. I think I will take just a few small bites just to see what it tastes like on the inside." And that is just what he did. He began to take one little bite over here and one little bite over there until finally he began taking great, huge bites wherever he could get them. He ate and he ate and he ate until all that was left was one very small crumb of cheese. Now you would have thought that would have been enough cheese for that cat, but it was not. He rested for a moment and cleaned his face with his paws. Then he looked at that piece of cheese. "You know," he said, "I do believe that last piece of cheese looks like the very best part of the cheese, and I'm so glad to have saved it for last because I'm truly going to enjoy it." Now, by this time, that cat was so full of cheese he could hardly move at all. As he reached out to grab the last bit of cheese, he accidentally knocked it off the limb. With horror, he watched it fall to the ground and land right on top of the little pile of leaves where the mouse was sleeping. The cheese hit the little mouse on top of the head with a thump. When the mouse opened his eyes and looked around, he saw the red string, then the white wrapping paper, and then at his feet he saw the small piece of cheese. Then the mouse looked up into the tree and saw the cat. Only now the cat was very, very fat. At once the mouse realized what the cat had done, and he also realized what he must do. He picked up the piece of cheese in his tiny paws and began to run. He ran as fast as his little legs would carry him without looking back. Well, that cat was so greedy he could not bear to have the mouse take that last piece of cheese. He scrambled down the tree as fast as his heavy little body would let him, and then he started to run too. But he had eaten an awful lot of cheese, and now that cheese was on the inside, it seemed even heavier than it was when it was on the outside. He found he could not run at all. He could barely even walk. By the time he got home, the mouse was nowhere to be seen. Now that cat was very angry about the mouse taking the last piece of cheese, and he told every cat he knew to watch out for mice. This little mouse was angry too. But he was much quieter about it. He and all his friends thought of a plan. From that day forward, all the mice have worked together to get back some of the cheese the greedy cat cheated away. They work day and night trying to trick the cat out of the cheese, and sometimes they do.
The end.
Wasn't that cat and mouse wonderful, boys and girls?
They really were, but you know, Miss Crystal, I really wish they had remained friends in the end.
I wonder, can any of you think of any ways that you can remain friends?
If you have some ideas, can you leave them in the comments below? And while you're at it, can you do us a big favor and tell us how many people are watching this with you right now? That'll really help us out in the future.
We'd also love to see any artwork that you're doing at home. Show us your special drawings. That would really brighten the day.
It would. Now, we have 2 more songs before we go, so first let's sing Twinkle Twinkle. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
Oh, wonderful.
Now let's sing Goodbye, friends. Are you ready? Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye, our friends. Our day has been made extra special just by you joining us. You've made our day wonderful.
Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you this time next week for another special story time.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.